For those of you who follow the Cover Killer Nation Facebook group, you recently saw a story that involved Arch Enemy and a photographer who is now banned from photographing Arch Enemy performances. It's no doubt something that you immediately thought, oh, I wonder what this is all about, and quickly were able to learn of the situation that followed. If you're not aware of the story, you can go to Metal Blast's YouTube page and watch a 10-minute video that explains the situation in full. I'll leave a link to the channel, or early to the video, in the description box below. But the Reader's Digest version of this story is pretty much as follows. A photographer was shooting images of Arch Enemy at one of their concerts, which he was hired to do, and posted one of them to his Instagram account. This was one that was utilized and shared by many fans. It was also shared by Alyssa Whiteglutz herself, but it was also shared by Thunderball Clothing, which is an apparel line that was using it as an apparent ad. Whenever the artist, the photographer in this case, reached out to them to attempt to receive compensation for his photograph being utilized in such a manner, which was seen as copyright infringement, and the man would know, considering he also happens to be a lawyer, he was immediately rebuked with negative response. Not by Thunderball Clothing, however, instead by the representation of Arch Enemy, one Angela Gossow. Yeah. So what essentially happened here is that he became banned from shooting the bands in the future. Promoters and other folks' representations were notified, which essentially could have committed a sort of career sabotage for him in the photographic realm. This, though, however, is bringing apart a much bigger issue, which is, of course, that of copyright infringement, counterfeiting, something that Angela herself is very big against, does not want this to happen whatsoever, and now there's a very big double standard that's going on right now in regard to that. The funny thing about this, and something that I thought was a really cool idea to exhibit this, was that the photographer himself uploaded one of Arch Enemy's songs to YouTube and immediately saw what most of us would see in this situation, a copyright claim. Something where the band was quick to try to, or at least their representation or the record label was quick to get the video monetized on their behalf as opposed to on the behalf of the uploader. This is something that if you're on YouTube, you've dealt with this all the time, potentially, if you attempted to do things like this. In fact, you've probably dealt with this even in some ways that seem to be extremely wrong, such as those who have had their opinions about albums or their opinions about certain games or movies or whatever taken down or outright claimed by other individuals simply because they're using the name of somebody else. So the comments that I really want to make in regard to this are based a little bit around being a content creator here on YouTube myself. It's something where whenever you sign up for YouTube, you don't really expect your stuff to be used somewhere else or used by somebody else, uploaded by someone else. But whenever you do have that occurrence, whenever it does happen, it is certainly something that can be a little bit infuriating. Really, the basic argument that some folks like to say is that, hey, you should enjoy having the extra exposure somewhere else. However, the exposure doesn't exactly come with the paycheck that goes along with it. And while this sounds like a very capitalist motivation, it is something, however, that if you are creating your own work, you do certainly have the option, or you should certainly see a cut of your hard work. The same way that a band such as Arch Enemy is trying to take the cut for their hard work whenever they see somebody post their song on YouTube and not cite them or not use or utilize their permission. There are a lot of different avenues out there for folks on YouTube in order to seek out these folks that are re-uploading videos that are not theirs and then claim them and monetize them. It's something that if you happen to be part of a network that is your method of being paid that isn't YouTube AdSense, they usually will broadcast or advertise that they have a tool in order to prevent this from happening, where they will aggressively seek out these counterfeiters in order to get them monetized on your behalf and thus improve your revenue stream if those videos happen to get popular. Now, in this sense, whenever it comes to a simple photograph, it may seem like a very rash decision in order to go up against a clothing company in order to try to get compensation. However, in the terms of copyright infringement, and like I said, the dude is a lawyer, so he would know the law, this is well within his rights in order to stake that claim. What was interesting also about this was the fact that whenever the initial correspondence occurred, it was not immediately shown who was being discussed or who he was in correspondence with. Instead of having an actual signature at the bottom, we just got a simple two-word best wishes, and that was it. So already this is a little bit deceiving in the fact that you didn't see that it was a representation of Thunderball clothing. Instead, it happened to be a representation of the band itself. In fact, it was later claimed in an email that came after this, that was from Angela herself, that it was Alyssa White-Glutz that was the person who was corresponding with this photographer. So already there are a couple of big mistakes that are being really thrown the way of Arch Enemy. Arch Enemy is the one that's been making these mistakes, and this is, of course, bringing up the idea of exposure once again, and the fact that photographers and other artists are struggling in order to get the compensation that they deserve for the work in which they do. So, where do we really stand whenever it comes to something like this? And really, in this world of 2018, 2019, where this is a huge problem that artists suffer through almost on a daily basis, especially whenever it comes to bootlegging, whenever it comes to illegal downloading, whenever it comes to knockoff brand t-shirts, folks that are basically scrounging to make a quick buck without thinking first about the ideas of copyright infringement or asking for permission. This is a serious problem. However, it is also a serious problem whenever a band that is talking about counterfeiting in a negative way and wanting to seek to stop counterfeiting is doing everything possible to essentially counterfeit, or in this case, utilize a photograph that somebody else made, essentially somebody else's art, and basically saying, sucks to be you, we have the rights in order to use this because it's our band, it's my band, it's this, it's that. When in reality, art is art. If you're not the person that snaps the photo, then that's not your art. If you're not the person that wrote that song, then it's not your art. If you're not the person that painted that photo, that has the license for that official merchandise, or created that merchandise that was placed on a t-shirt or pants or whatever it may be, then it is not your art. So once again, the biggest portion of this is based around the simple irony of it. Angela Gasau and Arch Enemy taking a stand against counterfeiting that wasn't counterfeiting. The counterfeiters was them, essentially trying to make them work for exposure. And this is something that apparently has been a very large problem over the past couple of years whenever it comes to big ticket artists as well, including a couple of names such as the Foo Fighters as well as Taylor Swift. And whenever you think about this, these are a couple of the biggest artists on the planet that really don't have any real means to complain about folks that are actually shooting for them, that are designed to do that and sharing their image, and they definitely have the money to burn. This is definitely not something where they are starving artists that are in need of exposure themselves. So this is sending a really dangerous message, not to mention a very poor message to those within the heavy metal media departments, and could potentially, and in fact I would actually recommend that if you happen to be in the heavy metal media, if you're on a show that Arch Enemy is going to be a part of, I would stop snapping photos. I would stop writing articles. I would not discuss this band whatsoever, because they kind of deserve it. They deserve the fact that their stance against folks that are counterfeiting or bootlegging or whatever is something that means that much to them, but yet they're willing to literally take the legs out from under somebody who was well within his own rights. So do me a favor, go over and check the video out at Metal Blast, or read the blog post, and then let me know what your comments are regarding this situation. I, personally speaking, I am 100% with the photographer in this case, considering as a content creator myself, it feels like something that hits right at home. It's one that I myself could one day, if I happen to become massive or something like that, or even if I just have my own style of art that is placed on products, may have to deal with as well. And it's really nice to see somebody that is willing to put in the fight and actually share stories such as this one, whenever in reality this isn't his main revenue stream. He could have easily just said, well, that's that. So thanks a lot, man. I appreciate the fact that you've gone out of your way in order to, really get this story out there, because this is a problem, and it's something that does need looked into, and something that does need to stop, especially if you happen to be a band that likes to say that bootlegging, counterfeiting, and copyright infringement is really, really bad. I'm CoverKiller Nation, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Take care.